Hey guys, and welcome to the first movie talk with Freedom. So this weekend, we're talking about the box office for the weekend of October 28th to October 30th, obviously of 2022. And today we're going to be focusing a lot about Black Adam and its second weekend drop and Pray for the Devil, which just opened up. So first up, Black Adam. It did come in at number 1. It had a 59% drop from its opening weekend, which is actually par for the course when it comes for blockbusters. Most blockbusters drop, 50 to 60% in their second weekend, sometimes high 50s, and sometimes even low 60s. So the fact that Black Adam was able to avoid that 60% drop is pretty impressive. But you want to know another Dwayne Johnson movie that it's very similar to? Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw in its second weekend dropped just around 58%. And its 10-day total was $108.4 million. Black Adam's at $111.1. So that's only a $3 million gap in between them. Like, it's almost exactly the same. And Hobbs and Shaw, in total, made about $173.9 million. Black Adam continues on this track. It is on track to make around $170 to $180 million just here in the States. Overseas, though, it has a bit of a problem. It's only at $139 million overseas and $250 million globally, which compared to like some other comic book movies and comic book blockbusters this year, it's the lowest 10-day total of them apart from Morbius, which was only like $100 million by its second week. This movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, by the end of its second weekend, was at $688 million. This movie, I think, has a problem because it was not released in China. For whatever reason, China has not been releasing a whole lot of Hollywood movies. So that future, behemoth of box office, it might be done. I don't see any Hollywood movies in the future, apart from maybe Avatar and Transformers next year, getting a China release date. And if they do, I don't know if they're going to do well, because there's been a lot of movies this year that haven't done well. And this $250 million total is bad, because it has a $200 million budget. For those of you that don't know, studios only get about 50% of a movie's box office in the end. And the movie budgets, don't even include advertising, which for a major blockbuster like Black Adam costs at least $100 million, which means that the total budget for this movie is probably somewhere between $200 to $300 million, which means it needs $500 to $600 million if you put all that math together just to break even. And Black Adam is barely halfway to the, best case scenario. Oh my God, Warner Brothers barely promoted this movie at all. Which, obviously, they spent a lot to promote it. But it ain't never gonna get to that much. Because overseas, just for this weekend, it only made about $39 million for a global weekend, second weekend, of $66.7 million. I think this is kind of the problem with day and date releases, because there's no big amount of money coming down the pipeline. So I don't know. Black Adam is going to have a tough time breaking even, but I guess right now it's doing okay for Black Adam. Second place, Ticket to Paradise. This movie had an excellent hold, 39%. I think In the top 10, it was the second best second weekend hold. We'll talk about that later on. But in its second weekend, it made $10 million. It cracked double digits for a domestic total to date of $33.7 million. But it's been playing overseas for a while now, and it's already up to $119 million globally after like a month, basically. So I think Ticket to Paradise is doing okay for Ticket to Paradise. I mean, it only had a $60 million budget, meaning it probably only needs another 30 to 40 million for Universal to make some money. Third place, Pray for the Devil, the only new release this weekend. It only opened to $7 million, which is pretty low. That is 3 times less than both The Black Phone and Smile debuted with. And those were considered, good openings because horror movies have not gotten great openings recently. But $7 million is just way too low. But at least it only has a $2 million budget. This is why Hollywood loves horror movies, by the way, because they just make so much darn money. One thing I'd like to point out, though, is that this movie only got a C+ cinema score. And cinema score is basically a business that will, spot pull people out of the theater to see how much they like the movie from a scale of, F to A. And the fact that this only got a C+. Most audiences are reluctant to say anything bad about a movie they just paid to see. So a C+ that just means they did not like the movie, and it's probably not going to have strong legs. For those who don't know the term, legs is basically referring to how well a movie does in the long run. So, okay legs is 2.4 times its opening weekend, and good legs is anything more than 2.7, 2.8 times its opening weekend. As for Smile, yes, it's about to cross 100 million, which is called the century mark, which in Hollywood is a referendum of success for movies. Typically around 20 to 30 movies every year will cross $100 million. That's about 2 every month. And $100 million for a movie is not that much, by the way. I mean, there's been quite a few movies that have opened more than $100 million. But for a low-budget horror movie like Smile, $100 million is a big deal because it's in its 5th weekend at this point, and it only dropped 40%, which is its biggest weekend drop, by the way. And its second weekend only dropped 18%, and since then it's been dropping in the 30s consistently. And when Monday actuals come in, it could very well still be in the 30s. But its global total is even more impressive because it is 10 times its budget. 93.6 million overseas, 186 million globally. This movie is doing very well. Paramount is very happy about this movie. 5th place, what a disaster. Halloween Ends. In its second weekend last weekend, it had the second biggest second weekend drop ever for a movie that opened at number 1 at a shocking 80%. And in its third weekend, the bleeding didn't stop. It dropped another 52% for a total of just $3.83 million. Smile made $1 million more than that. And Halloween Ends is only at $60 million total domestic. Halloween Kills made over $70 million. So this is just terrible. And it probably only has another 5 or 6 million down left because Halloween is tomorrow. So why would you watch a Halloween movie after Halloween, basically? So I just don't see how this movie is going to do good. And the overseas box office is not any better for Halloween Ends. It's not even at 100 million globally. As for the overall top 10, it was moderate drops across the board, with 3 movies actually increasing. Till and Tar, our award season chances, Till did very well, up almost 700%, while Tar did only moderate. The woman, Lyle Lyle Crocodile had the best hold in the top 10, for a movie that didn't increase its theater count or anything, dropping just around 34% to $2.83 million for a total of 32.6 so far. But looking at this list, it should not take only $1 million to crack the top 10. And the fact that there's only one movie on this list that has made the century mark so far, that is just terrifying. Oh yeah, something else I should point out. Black Adam had the biggest drop in the top 10. But, like I said, Black Adam's second weekend drop is moderate. As for this coming weekend, One Piece Film Red is opening up, and the industry is expecting around $13 million. This movie's already made about $147.8 million overseas. So, yeah, I mean, it's been doing well in Japan, so I totally understand why it's almost at 150 million already. So that's Freedom's Movie Talk, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for my special video I'm making.